Our next speaker is going to be speaking on the role of organization culture as a key component of public relations. And who better than someone who is the CEO of Great Place to Work. She has a ringside view of some of the best companies in India and around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, let's roll the video introduction for Yeshasvini Ramaswamy.
Good evening. I heard that after 2 years, we've been having a face-to-face event all over again. So I really look forward to meeting all of you this evening and tomorrow. Thank you, Vineet, for inviting me over here. I thought I'll spend a couple of minutes talking about workplace culture, especially with the pandemic. There are words like hybrid. There are words like work from home. There are words like equity that's coming up in the workplace culture. So I thought, why don't we have a conversation about it today? This is us. This is Great Place to Work. So the kind of data and the insights that I'll be sharing with you today, we roughly cover about 10.2 million employees every year. More than 10,000 companies participate with us. And these companies get recognized both at a national level, at a region level, like Asia, Europe, and of course at a world level. So we have the Fortune Top 100, we have India's Top 100, etc. But more importantly, these voices come to us from 97 countries. So we have a data set that is probably the richest in the world, because the methodology that we follow is considered to be a gold standard, given the fact that we've been listening to employee voices predicting trends for more than 30 years. So this is a video I thought all of you should watch. There are words like digitization, augmented reality, companies becoming more digital in their outlook by investing millions into their sales force, etc. So I thought let's give a perspective to what's happening around us and hashtag it called Future of Work. Can we have the video, please?
Once upon a time, business as usual was often good enough. No more. Where we are going, good enough is dead. In a world where everything is connected, where everything is equally excellent, where performance is reaching perfection, there's only one space left to innovate in: you. Right now, you are a central point in the raging tornado of change fueled by digitization, mobilization, augmentation, disintermediation, automation, well, the list goes on. Science fiction is becoming science fact. Think about self-driving cars or computers that can learn and think. The way we work will never be the same. The skills we need will be dramatically different. Winning or losing are now happening faster than ever before. So what's your response? How will you discover new opportunities in one of the most transformational times in human history? Are you driving change or are you being driven by it? Disruption has become the new normal. With change, it's always gradually, then suddenly, well, things really have stopped happening gradually. This change is exponential. Everything that used to be dumb and disconnected is now wired and intelligent. Cars, cities, ports, farms, even our bodies will be wired with sensors and will talk to each other. These game changers are also combinatorial. They amplify each other, creating a perfect storm of change. Quantum computing fuels big data. The Internet of Things fuels artificial intelligence and deep learning, which fuels robotics. However, anything that cannot be digitized or automated will become extremely valuable. Human-only traits such as creativity, imagination, intuition, emotion, and ethics will be even more important in the future because machines are very good at simulating but not at being. Yes, robots and software will do some of our work, but this will allow us to focus on things that cannot be automated. To imagine change squared, you've got to start engaging more with what might be, not just with what is. Immerse yourself in the immediate future, 5 to 7 years out from today. We need to go beyond technology and data to reach human insights and wisdom. Technology represents the how of change, but humans represent the why. The future is about holistic business model. The opportunity is to be liquid, to learn just in time, not just in case, not single improvements, but complete transformations, not individual systems, but new ecosystems. Humanity is where true and lasting value is created. We will engage, relate, and buy things because of the experiences they provide, because of their transformative power. The future doesn't just happen, the future gets happened. The new way to work is to embrace technology, but not to become it. The future isn't technology, yet the bigger future lies in transcending it. Let's live and lead from here.
I'm a big fan of him. But I think this video is so powerful. Change doesn't happen, it gets happened. The second one that's my personal favorite in this video is technology is more about the what, but the human being is more about the why. And the future belongs to those who are able to create a holistic business model. Now, these can be jargons, but what does it really mean? At the core of it, I think in the last session we were talking about, is the sense of purpose, is very clearly articulating why is it that you do what you do, and create a communication plan around it so that each and every employee of your organization can relate to it. In fact, you must have heard about the great resignation that everybody is talking about, and you will be surprised that in our data set, companies who've continuously being certified as a great place to work, we call them laureates. These are companies who consistently rank for more than a decade. And surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly, the great resignation hasn't affected them at all. So it makes more than just business sense. It actually, culture, investing in a workplace culture gives you maybe a shot at immortality. Because if you talk about these legacy companies, it is the culture that binds them together. So in the world that we're today, which is digital, which is borderless. In fact, in our own organization here in India, in the pre-pandemic times, most of our workforce were operating from 3 cities, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore. The pandemic happened, we all had to innovate, and now we have employees from 16 cities. So if a small company like ours, which was operating from 3 has gone to 16, just imagine the complexity that has come into the workforce. Products, technology, people, strategies, all can be copied, isn't it? Obvious. If I have a competition up my sleeve, they can poach your employees. They can copy your products. They can look at the technology that you have and take a shot at it. Everything in this world is competition. What remains yours is your workplace culture and purpose. That is your competitive advantage. Your competition may be able to copy your technology, your products, but believe me, culture is something that is sacrosanct, and we're seeing time and again culture being the central competitive advantage, especially in these times to come. So the question I have for all of you to maybe think through is, as CEOs of your organization, as leaders of your organization, have you taken the time to define your why? Why is it as a CEO that you walk into your office every day? Why is it as a business leader you walk into your office every day? What is that something that you are contributing back, which is larger than your job, which has a larger sense of purpose than your paycheck? That is very important. So if nothing else from the time that I spend with you today, if you can just take back to reflect on this, is to why is it that we do what we do as a company, and how do I really relate it to my employees? And our employees today, the communication strategies, I have seen it evolve. Today at an average, every organization is dealing with a minimum 3 or a maximum 5 generations in one company. We used to hear about baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, then came Gen Z, and then there's talk about these millennials. And now we're getting to hear the word, how many alphas, Gen Alpha, are there in your company, right? And that the way they're going to relate to purpose is going to be so different than your Gen X who's been in your organization. So these are exciting times, believe me. Exciting times, because people use the word VUCA, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And for me, it's the best time, especially if you have a mindset of a lab where you want to experiment. These times are exciting for us to innovate. For me, personally, being in India, these are exciting times. Let's just take a look at this data. Asia is in red, Europe green, the Americas in blue, and Russia, little controversial right now to talk about them, but nonetheless in yellow. And the source is from IMF. And what this shows us is the prominence of the Asian markets. And culture in these markets is very different than the dominant cultures that we have seen in the past on the in the global economy stage. Personally, for me, what was surprising is Indonesia coming up. That is a market that we need to watch out for. Indonesia or not, I think India is here to stay. And the kind of talent and the skill sets that we will see mushrooming in India is going to be fascinating. The next 10 years, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be chalking history. I think when we become really old and when we have stories to tell our grandchildren, we will be telling them that we've lived through history, pandemic, post-pandemic change, and yet being resilient in creating wealth and economic development in a meaningful way for future generations. That responsibility is on us, this generation. When we talk about India, there's always a contradiction. And I thought, who better than Amitabh Bachchan to kind of talk to us about the contradictions that we have in India and Bharat. And probably that will help us take this dialogue of workplace culture forward. Can we have the video, please?
There are two Indias in this country. One India is straining at the leash, eager to spring forth and live up to all the adjectives that the world has been recently showering upon us. The other India is the leash. One India says, give me a chance and I'll prove myself. The other India says, prove yourself first and maybe then you'll have a chance. One India lives in the optimism of our hearts. The other India lurks in the skepticism of our minds. One India wants. The other India hopes. One India leads. The other India follows. These conversions are on the rise. With each passing day, more and more people from the other India are coming over to this side. And quietly, while the world is not looking, a pulsating, dynamic new India is emerging. An India whose faith in success is far greater than its fear of failure. An India that no longer boycotts foreign-made goods, but buys out the companies that make them instead. History, they say, is a bad motorist. It rarely ever signals its intentions when it's taking a turn. This is that rarely ever moment. History is turning a page. For over half a century, our nation has sprung, stumbled, run, fallen, rolled over, got up and dusted herself, and cantered, sometimes lurched on. But now, in our 60th year as a free nation, the ride has brought us to the edge of time's great precipice. And one India, a tiny little voice in the back of the head, is looking down at the bottom of the ravine and hesitating. The other India is looking up at the sky and saying, it's time to fly.
Absolutely. I think a big round of applause for us as India. Our time is now. Even if you look at the data, the stability of the economy, given that we're a democratic country, political stability of our nation, there's so much going for us. And you can talk about our culture being a jugaad culture, but the way I see it is sometimes it's good, because when the electricity goes off, we don't panic. If we don't have a candle, we still don't panic, right? And if we don't have any resources in our house, we will go out, knock on the neighbor's door and get those resources. So resilience is a part of culture. So it's no surprise, a sense of community, a sense of resilience, a sense of getting things done in spite of the limitations, in spite of the constraints that we have. That is us, and that is India. And if you look at where we're poised today, we are on the cusp of mergers and acquisitions. The kind of confidence that is coming into the community, where outbound deals is going to far exceed inbound deals that's going to happen, those times are here to stay. So people are going to be looking at us and saying, lead. we'll follow. And I think the video said it perfectly. There is a generation which is saying, give me a chance and I'll prove. And exactly, there is that other generation which is saying, do your stuff and then maybe I'll give you a chance. And these conversations happen in all our organizations. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is, are we really modeling our workplace culture and our business to be future ready? Are we taking that leap of faith to really let go of the past? Because the next 10 years is going to be nothing like the last 25 years. So, and it takes a courage of conviction for us to redefine that for ourselves as leaders and for our employees. This is Gartner, and I found this interesting, right? What employees say about how the pandemic has changed their feelings about work and life, and you can see the huge shift. Gray is disagree or strongly disagree. The blue ones are a little neutral, and the yellow is, of course, they agree to this. And you can see this shift, especially shifted my attitude towards the value of aspects outside work. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? We used to go to work. Work came home. Work came home. So what do? We had to redefine ourselves. We had to reimagine what will be a workplace culture. Made me rethink the place that work should have in my life. You would be amazed at the kind of questions we get from the millennials and from this alpha generation about, you know, I'm sure you must be facing that in your organization. Hybrid has now become the norm. In your offers, if you don't offer a work from home, they're not going to join you. So we're living through those times that we see today. Changed my perspective on the desirability of my workplace location. What is office today? What was office yesterday? Office yesterday was a location that got printed on my visiting card, that has an access card, that has facilities. We would log in and log out. Today, what is the definition of office? What is it? Anytime, anywhere. Your office can be a cafe, your office can be a community, your office can be your home. For me, most important was the last one. Changed my expectations toward my employer. That we've seen a huge shift. Actually, in wave one, there was a bit of cynicism from both the employers and the employees because, you know, March 2020, when the COVID announcement happened, we all told our workforce it's going to be a couple of weeks and then we're going to come back. Who knew at that time, March 2020, that it's going to take 2 years for us to get back and 3 years for us to have this kind of a conference? Who knew, right? So the expectations that an employee has today, they're pushing for responsible leadership. They're pushing for communityship. Not just leadership, not just alpha male traditional models of leadership. They're pushing for communityship. And the second wave proved that on a global scale, where we really saw the Indian leadership step up. I'm mindful of the time, so I'm going to be rushing through a couple of slides, and Vineet has his questions for me lined up. But broadly speaking, what are the mindset shifts that we're looking at in the organization? Profit to purpose. It's not cool anymore to just show off your profits. It's essential for you to communicate the purpose. Hierarchies to networks. There is an expectation of the later generation saying, work with me, not work for me. The moment you say work for me, you will see them rebel. So hierarchies are changing to networks. controlling to empowering. They're saying, trust us. Don't micromanage all the time. Isn't it? Yeah? Yeah, you see the young girls are already nodding their head. Planning to experimentation. Some of the fascinating cultures around the globe are cultures where leaders promote experimentation, where there's no real fear of failure. Privacy to transparency. You may do everything you want. An employee may just have a bad day, tweets something wrong, it goes viral. What happens to your reputation? So everything is becoming real time. And that is a complexity that we have to deal with. So we've all spoken about purpose. What does it mean? So I thought this will really help us do that. Looking for your company's purpose, what does it really mean? Basically this Venn diagram. But these three questions. What the world needs, something larger than me. What the company is uniquely good at, not good at, uniquely, a differentiator to your organization. How the company can create economic value, of course a no-brainer. If you're not making profits, you're going to shut down. So nobody is saying profit is a bad word. And what people at the company are passionate about. When these questions come together, you have a sense of purpose. And as public relations, as communications, as leaders, it becomes our primary duty to communicate that purpose. And that is here to stay as we navigate uncertain times. For us in Great Place to Work India, we've also evolved and we've also transitioned and we've gone much beyond certification. And we're now urging CEOs to develop signature best practices around all of those circles that you see. We are saying that it's time you invest more in your people managers. They have the toughest job today. You call for a meeting, half of them have their video switched off, mute. You ask them a question, they're saying internet problem, can you repeat the question? And then you have the same manager that you're holding responsible for productivity. What is the support that you're giving him or her or them? Second, wellness and well-being. We've spoken about issues around mental health, physical health, etc. Community events. Can we be more equitable? Are we binary? Are we still binary in our events is a question that we're asking. Real-time listening. Artificial intelligence is here to stay, and as leaders, are you still doing your annual surveys? Boy, by the time those results come, you take decisions, the world has moved on. So what is the real-time technology that you're investing to develop workplace culture? Questions around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think we understand that, but I'd urge you to appreciate that there is a huge difference between equity and equality. And very simply put, equality is I'm buying the same size of shoes for everybody. I'm treating everybody equal. Does that work? No. Being equitable works, which is I buy shoes that fits everybody and everybody is comfortable. So the HR policies have to become equitable. So please don't have policies where you paint brush and think this is all right for everybody in my organization. And of course, the whole bit about benchmarking yourself to some of the next practices. I think there was a lot of conversation around best practices, and that has gone. Because I don't know a lot of things like you don't know a lot of things. We are co-creating in this environment. So in the consulting space, there's something called best practices as a reference, but we're working really hard to create the next practice that can be a gold standard. So that's how we're evolving in Great Place to Work India. And lastly, these are some, I mean, you will ask me for evidence, isn't it? All this is good, Yeshasvini, but shows evidence of companies who've actually walked the talk. For me, Starbucks, their mission to inspire and nurture the human spirit. And I don't know which corp-com, communication, marketing, I don't know. I just love that sentence. One person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. It's just not a glass of or a cup of coffee anymore. And we all know what happened to the economic wealth and the shares of Starbucks. So really, shamelessly, aggressively, confidently, whatever adjective that you want to use, moved to communicating the purpose of what they stand for. Abhay is a good college friend of mine. Licious, some of you may be ordering. This is not for branding or marketing. He's just a very dear friend of mine. And that picture I put there because we are in an era of unicorns, new age companies. New age companies have a new way of workplace culture. So there is traditional brick and mortar legacy companies working on workplace culture, but there is this whole community of startups and unicorns that are developing their own culture. They're young, they're vibrant, they're confident, and more importantly, they're not apologetic. And that's what we're seeing. Biocon, Kiran, again a favorite. Again, not to brand her, but one leader who consistently says that I want more competition because I want the industry to grow. And that respectability that she has brought into an industry single-handedly is wonderful. My personal favorite, Tata. Because people think workplace culture is short-term, transactional. It's not. And we say life is a circle, and this was something that he said in 1903. So we're more than 100 years. And I think life is coming full circle. In a free enterprise, the community is not just another stakeholder in business, but is in fact the very purpose of its existence. So leadership to communityship, that is the dialogue we're having in workplace culture today. And before I hand it over to Vineet, this is the last slide. This is data from 2008, where we've studied companies who continuously invest in workplace culture. And you would see that their shareholder returns far outperform if you bought silver or gold or did commodity. So if you're a shareholder of a company today, watch out whether that company is a great place to work or not, and whether it's really investing in workplace culture. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Lovely talking to you, and look forward to more conversations.
Great. Thank you so much, Yeshasvini.
Sat Shri Akal all. Guys, Sat Shri Akal, we are in Chandigarh. Yes. Culture, right? That's what we are talking about. Great. So, honestly, Yeshasvini, okay, I'm a devil's advocate today. I think culture is still overhyped.
Okay.
You've done enough to talk about culture, but I still feel somewhere that there are so many organizations who probably doing great, do not even know C of culture. People still work there. People don't leave those jobs, don't leave those companies. What about them?
Right. So I don't think there is any company in this world that doesn't have a culture. So to your statement that they don't understand the C of culture, there is an assumption that the company has a good workplace culture. And it's not for us to say whether you have a good culture or a bad culture. And my take is very simple. Whatever is your business aspirations, is your company culture aligned to meet those aspirations? If your company is on a very fast growth track of acquisitions and your culture does not promote quick decision making, then there is something wrong. So every company has a culture. whether you're aware of it, whether you're proactively nurturing it to your competitive advantage. I think the narrative lies there.
Probably. Is culture being talked more because of pandemic? I strongly feel 5 years back, nobody bothered about culture.
Yeah, I think when the narrative comes to India, it is relatively new because the growth of multinationals, we've just about arrived. And I think the next 10 years is going to be more important for us. Workplace culture has existed. If you look at Great Place to Work, our first top 100 came out 30 years ago. So I don't think it is a new phenomenon, but I think for the Indian markets, it's something that that we should really start looking at.
But culture doesn't come cheap, right? There's a cost.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Vineet. Actually, for me, and thank you for asking that, culture actually costs you nothing. There is a myth, and we also visit a lot of organizations. We ask them, what is your workplace culture? And guess what? They take us to the food court. They, they get us to those bean bags. They say we let our employees play billiards and chess and we're actually like, okay, fine, but I need to understand your culture. And great question, Vineet. Culture costs nothing because culture is the tenacity of how you build relationships within your organization. And relationships need honest, emotional conversations. Abhi conversations can happen over a cup of chai also. So.
But then what happens to technology? We are all talking about hybrid. We are talking about, switch off videos, online calls. Where is the culture gone then?
It's difficult. I think culture has been, the biggest proponent of an enabler or a disruptor has been technology, and we've had both sides of the story. We've said technology has actually brought in a lot of cohesiveness, collaboration. People across cities are now able to work together, but it's also been a disruptor because technology has been very invasive. It's entered our homes, and now you can't do without it. So I think what we need is responsible leadership of how you define, and in fact, practices like wellness breaks are coming in. Leaders are going away from agenda because the frustrations are coming in. Now, if you're 2 minutes late on a Zoom call, people start palpitating. And there was a time where you would take your laptop and walk down the hall and you would be 5-6 minutes late. We're all walking with our cups of chai and sitting and having a conversation. Abhi Zoom pe is like, have they come, So it's affecting us. Mentally, there is fatigue that is setting in because I think pandemic was a challenge and we had to overcome that challenge. And we fought through it and now there is fatigue. And as leaders, we have to recognize that there is a sense of fatigue in our organizations, for us also, because we've been dealing with it. Quarter and quarter is not an easy game to play. So acknowledge it. Have meetings called Ask Me Anything. We've seen that, being really popular. The leader comes on, there's no agenda. Ask me anything. Those avenues where you're really curating or creating a sense of belongingness, I think that is the answer to technology.
I still feel that's good to do, but impact-wise, I don't know.
Let's give him
How can you,
warm cup of chai.
45 minutes of Ask Me Anything can create a culture?
It can't, but
Okay.
it is a step. It is like that story that we've all heard where there were hundreds of starfish and this man went on throwing the starfish back to the ocean and they would all come back. And this man asked, what, you're not creating any difference? And the answer was, for that starfish, it makes a difference. And initiatives like this is all about the beginning. Because culture is not a destination, my friends. Culture is a journey. And हम तो अच्छे हैं journey करने में, तो why
Great.
not?
Culture is journey, but in that journey, do we change culture?
Yeah, culture is ever evolving. Culture is not constant, and very challenging, especially for those industries that are facing high attrition, and for companies that are 35% and above. Every 3 years, you're a new company. So, what really stays with you? What stays with you is the sense of purpose. Why is it that you do what you do? So, culture will adapt. Culture will force you to take those tough decisions. It is a live animal that you have to deal with. Now, whether it's a tiger or a mouse or a lion or an amoeba, that's up to the CEO to define. And I keep saying this, that HR is responsible for employee experience, but the CEO is responsible for culture. The translation of culture to employee experience is the primary responsibility of HR, but culture is set from the top. We have a minute and a half.
My last question. This is what the time
Do
I
we
had
have an
been
audience
given.
question also?
Oh yes, in fact, I have a lot of great companies here, from startup to, in fact, I have Mr. Madan Bahal here, who's the largest Indian company who's changing, and true to Amitabh Bachchan ji, what he said, he is leading the chart for us and globally. Mr. Bahal.
Since the context is Indian, what is the simple notion or idea or a shared behavior or value that holds India together, 1.39 billion people, and what relevance it has for organizational culture?
Yeah. So what is the one emotion that holds India together, and what relevance does it have to an organization? That was his question. For me, it is a sense of communityship. I think dealing with communities, for example, if you just take a look at vaccines, a lot of CEOs in India did not have board meetings to decide that vaccines will be given to employees and their families. So a sense of communityship, a sense of belonging is something that we have seen common across India and across communities, and that is reflective in organization cultures also. And I think from a generation lens, the youngsters are highly aspirational. We're a young country, they have a lot of energy, they want to do something. And if you have a lot of hierarchy in your organization, that may just lead to frustration. So I think in the younger lot, a sense to achieve something, to prove something, that is common irrespective of your race, religion, etc.
Sanjam Rajshekhar.
Yeah.
You talked about the direct correlation that organization culture has with stock and shareholder wealth. Now, I'll give you two examples. This is really a follow-up to what Vineet said. So you have organizations known for toxic work culture, abrasive bosses, abrasive email, doing extremely well. On the other hand, you have companies celebrated by various surveys and organizations like yourself for having great organizational culture but died away. So the first one, Tesla, not necessarily known for being one of the best places to work, specifically called out for being for toxic workplace. On the other hand, I'll give you two, again, tech examples. Research in Motion, the company behind BlackBerry, known for great culture. You have Motorola, known for great culture. Even GE was known for having a great culture at one point in time. But all these companies sort of died away. So how do you explain really things like that?
Yeah, I think What I would advise is don't take workplace culture as the only variable of your strategy. And we see this in mergers and acquisitions. Before I invest in a company, what do? I do financial due diligence, I do legal due diligence, I do commercial due diligence, and now we're advocating do culture due diligence also. Because 80% of the deals are failing across the world, and the number one reason is culture incompatibility. What you call as toxic or non-toxic is again a perspective. And all that I can say, and in the interest of time, is that a lot of the organizations disappear. They don't last the time. For organizations that have a good workplace culture, you still remember them. Maybe their commercial viability was not as high. For toxic workplace culture, I have been to Tesla. I've spent a lot of time there in the US. They have amazing innovation. So sometimes it may be what is getting reported and not necessarily what they're living in that organization. Because I have been there and I have spoken to employees and they just love what's happening there. But irrespective, if you can't hold your people together, there is no business. So it's up to you to decide to invest or not in workplace culture.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vineet.
you.
Thank you, Yeshasvini.
Thank you, Yeshasvini.
Yeah.